Well, the last time our money, the US dollar, had a tangible value was August 15th. And on that day, you could take $35 and buy an ounce of gold. So $1 can buy 3% of 1 ounce of gold in 1971. But it was tangible. It was real. It was gold. Okay. So what happened later on that day, August 15th, 1971, is President Nixon decided to decouple the value of our US dollar from gold. And why? Because by not pegging the value of our dollar to gold, what that means is when we had to have gold in order to print dollars, now that there's no tangible value necessary, you don't have to have the gold on hand in order to exchange it for the dollars. You can now print as many dollars as you want. So President Nixon closed the gold window on August 15th, 1971, and the US dollar officially became a fiat currency. What that means is it was untethered to any tangible value. So what gave it value is the confidence we placed in it, that it was still going to be legal tender and that it had value in of itself, intrinsic value. Okay. So now we have this fiat currency that's not tied to any tangible value. Well, what happens next was there's a theory of economics called modern monetary theory, MMT. According to this theory, for any country that prints its own money and their own currency is a fiat currency, and if all their debt is in their own currency, they are truly free to print as much money as they want, with the only hindrance being whether printing too much money creates inflation. Okay, so as long as you don't create runaway prices, print as much money as you want. The good news is, theoretically, modern monetary theory, MMT, means that our government is empowered to fund all the important infrastructure and national investments that would make America all it can be. For example, we can use modern monetary theory to develop a modern transportation system. Look about America and our transportation system. It was the Eisenhower administration that built the interstate highway system. When was the last time we've had a major overhaul of that? Since the 50s. Okay. We are still using an Amtrak, taking the slow train, where if you want to go from one end of our country to another, it's going to take you a few days. When in Europe, in high-speed rail, you can go from Paris to London in a few hours. Well, we could invest in a modern transportation system that could support high-speed rail, electric vehicles, being recharged by the road. All these things are actually being done around the world, but we don't have that in America. We could finance a modern electric grid system. Our electric grid system is a bunch of duct tape and different states deciding to go their own way, as we found out in Texas, when their system unplugged from the national system, collapsed, and several Texans died in the winter when the heat went out. We have a national electric grid system that is old, antiquated, subject to terrorist or other malfeasance attacks, and has very little adaptability, particularly now that we need to transition to renewable energy. So this would be a nice thing that we could invest in by printing our own money. Well, how about this? We used to have the world's best education system, but you and I know what has happened in the last 50 years to the United States education system. But this is something we can invest in, like universal health care. We can invest and have world-class health insurance so that all Americans have access to the health care they need with minimum out-of-pocket expense. We can print the money to do this. right? As long as these infrastructure investments don't drive consumer prices off the table, okay? The reason why the private sector doesn't pay for those things is because they don't pay a return on investment in this type of cycle that aligns with Wall Street. Working families have needed for years access to world-class, not-for-profit child care so that they know that their children are well taken care of before they go to school. Child care today is more expensive than school. Yeah, even if you go to a private school, child care tends to be more expensive. If you're a parent, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We should invest in not-for-profit, world-class quality childcare so that people have a safe place to bring their children so that they can work in peace without concern. All these things with the US dollar as a fiat currency is in the power of our elected officials to do. Okay. Well, given the fact that we just crossed the $40 trillion threshold in federal debt. Yeah. If you didn't see it, let me be the first to tell you. $40 trillion in federal debt you and I are saddled with. And the thing about it is 36 trillion of that occurred over the last 34 years. So let's do the basic math. America was founded in 1776. By 1992, 216 years later, we had $4 trillion in debt. We fought 2 world wars. We had a civil war. We had a Great Depression. Yeah, all that added up, $4 trillion in debt in 1992. Well, what the devil happened over the last 34 years? Because we've added $36 trillion. Now, given that we know that we're using modern monetary theory, we're printing the money, and as long as it's not inflationary, and oh, by the way, go back and check the numbers. Inflation wasn't a thing in the 90s. The last time inflation was a thing before the Biden administration, we'll get to that, was in the 80s. In the 90s, inflation fell off the map. In the 2000s, inflation was not a thing, just like interest rates were not a thing for a long time, too, right? Okay. So while they're spending this $36 trillion in excess federal spending over our tax revenues, right? You would think, okay, clearly we must have some of the goodies. Who got the $36 trillion? Well, what we don't have is a world-class transportation system. You certainly know that, right? Our transportation system is third world level deferred maintenance. I mean, you got bridges falling down in Baltimore. You got potholes on highways across this country. Amtrak, it might take you 2 days to get from Los Angeles to Seattle. Okay, maybe 1 day. Again, they're getting from Paris to London in a few hours. Can we join the 21st century when we're spending $36 trillion over and above our tax revenues? Okay. Well, if that's not enough, nothing is being done to our electric grid system at a time when we need to transition to renewable energy. We need to bring nuclear back online, smarter, better, more efficient, right? No, is any of that happening? Hardly. But again, where did the $36 trillion go if it didn't go to modernizing our electric grid system? Okay. We know the story, the sad story of the collapse of American education. The latest data rating education systems around the globe has the United States at 18th in the world. Given the amount of money we spend, given our level of federal debt, again, $40 trillion, 36 trillion in the last 3 or 4 years, right? How is it possible that our education system has fallen so low? 18th in the world when we used to be the number 1 education system in the world in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s. Yeah. Clearly, we didn't invest in education. And our healthcare system. What a catastrophic failure. There was a recent study done of 10 of the richest countries in the world, and America ranked dead last. But the bottom line is, what's plaguing the American healthcare system is not the quality of our facilities. We have world-class quality facilities. It's not the availability of specialists and doctors. We have world-class specialists and doctors, right? It is the access that Americans don't have. And because we have such poor access, because so many of us have been priced out of the system, because the number one reason for bankruptcy is healthcare expense in America, right? And has been for like 10 years, okay? America's health outcomes are horrible. And that's why our healthcare system doesn't rank well, because our access is limited. Yeah. All this could have been fixed by spending some of that $36 trillion that we spent in the last 34 years. None of it seemed to go to healthcare. You've reached the end of episode 48. What's a dollar worth these days? The YouTube cut. If you've enjoyed this excerpt, please consider joining the Breadcrumbs community as a monthly standard member. The cost is only $10 a month, but for your hard-earned money, you get $20 worth of free gifts that I'm currently selling on Amazon. Plus, you get the full episodes of Breadcrumbs, including this episode today. You also get all the research that I do to support the important breadcrumbs that I share with you each week. You also get a free email address that you can communicate with directly so we can deepen our weekly conversation. So yeah, if you'd enjoyed this excerpt, consider joining our community. Click the link below and I'll see you next time in the conversation.